Hello friends, so today we're going to be talking about native plants. And your first question is probably going to be, why are we talking about native plants, or why are we even talking about plants at all? The reason is because, like practically everything, they are dying very quickly as a result of human activity. But why does that matter? Well, we know that there are a lot of reasons why plants are important. We know that forests are an important way for us to get carbon back into the ground and reduce the effects of climate change. We know that plants help us to get clean air and water, and we also know that plants provide us with a source of food, and that all these factors are conducive to keeping us alive. So plants are important, but why native plants? Native plants are special because they've co-evolved together over millions of years to provide us with services like clean air, water, and food in the most efficient way possible. Co-evolved just means that all of the different species have grown and changed together over time, sort of like a family. By living in the same space together for millions of years, plants get a chance to become suited to the environment they live in. So they don't need fertilizer because they already know how to live in the soil. They don't need extra heat or light because they're used to the climate. And because these plants have been living together for so long, they've evolved mechanisms to make sure no single species can outcompete all the others. So in a way, they balance each other out. Okay, so we know native plants are important, but why are they dying if they're so well suited to the environment? There are a lot of reasons. The main one is that as a result of human activity, that environment is changing very quickly. The biggest factor in this is habitat loss. And habitat loss can look like a lot of things. The biggest examples are urban development, like housing and roads, and agriculture. So now, all those soil and land conditions that the plant communities are used to are being replaced with something completely different that they've never had to deal with before. But it's not just that the land is changing, the climate is also changing. So not only do we have completely new soil conditions and completely new species that can hurt us, but also the temperature and the precipitation are changing too. Not to mention the increased frequency of natural disasters, so even if the plants are able to survive the constant stress of a new environment, now they have to do it all while being submerged underwater or actively on fire. And altogether that makes a recipe for disaster for our native species. So what do we do about it? We can't exactly reverse all of that human development, we still need places to live and food to eat, and it'll be a while before we can fix climate change. We need to find a way to 1. Keep our native plant communities, and 2. Make sure they can resist all the changes that we're throwing at them. And this is a very new question, there's a lot of research left to do to solve it, but one solution might be climate-suitable planting. The idea behind this is that plants can't migrate on their own, they can't just leave when conditions get too rough for them. But we can, which means that as the climate gets warmer, we can start to move those plants northwards, to a place that will be close to the climate those plants evolved to deal with. And that takes some stress off of the plants and helps them to keep providing the services we need to survive. But that brings up a conflict. If we're moving these plant species from their original homes to somewhere else, doesn't that now make them not native? Wouldn't that throw the ecosystem out of balance? Maybe, but there's more to it than that. Because even if the plants we're moving north aren't from the exact area they're originated from, native plants usually have a fairly wide geographical range, so let's say we're moving some plants that used to do best in North Carolina up to Pennsylvania. They might already have a few of that species already living there, we're just speeding up the process. And even if that exact plant species wasn't there, there's a good chance that some of their neighbors from further south are also up there, which means that we'll have something controlling that species, even if that species wasn't there already. Also, no matter what, it's better than taking something from another part of the world that doesn't have anything keeping it in check and bringing it here. So we know that climate-suitable planting has a chance to help keep our native ecosystems functioning, but how does that affect any of us? It sounds pretty complicated, so what would the average person have to do with this? Maybe more than you think. It is complicated trying to come up with models to determine exactly which species will do best in which places a few years or a few decades from now, but if you want to help, you don't need to look at every species in every location. You just need to know what will grow in your own backyard. Growing native species in the area around you won't fix everything, but it will fix one small area. even if we can't reverse the effects of development or the effects of climate change, we can take steps to reintroduce native plant species to our own environments and make things a little bit more like they were in the past. There are lots of resources available on planting native species in general based on your local site conditions, like how much sun you get or what your soil is like. The only thing you have to do then is think about what will happen to the place you live in over the next few decades. Will it get warmer, wetter, drier? With these factors in mind, we can look at the native species recommended for where we live and adjust based on what's expected to happen in the future. If we're already on the southern edge of a native plant's range, it's probably not going to do very well in the near future. But if we're on the northern end, there's a good chance that it could survive or even thrive. But what if you don't have a backyard and planting native plants is pretty expensive? What if you can't afford that? There are still things you can do to help. You can support organizations that protect native plant species like Native Plant Trust. You can donate to them or you can volunteer. You can support legislation that protects native plant species and encourages biodiversity. So now we know that protecting native plant communities is a huge and complicated issue, but there are plenty of things you can do to help. To get started, consider visiting nativeplanttrust.org to learn about local plant conservation efforts, or shop for native plants online to get started on plant conservation wherever you are. Thank you.